Compare the COVID-19 with SARS and MERS. And what you can see here is, so the SARS outbreak, first case here, and the progression of things happening. And here is the COVID-19, how things are happening. And the acceleration is far greater, of course. If the death rate is extremely high with a virus like this, then then people would get it. They get sick fairly quickly, so low incubation time. Much less than a couple. The one day to 2 weeks for the coronavirus. So people then get sick, and then if they die within a week or two, they're not able to spread to many other people. So the combination of so that's if the mortality rate is much higher, but the mortality rate being lower, and the idea that there's a long incubation period of up to 2 weeks, and some people have even it might even be higher, up to 19 days in some cases, then that makes it very, very difficult, if there's no symptoms exhibited, to actually know if somebody has it and is spreading it. So there's a lot of similarities to the influenza, the Spanish flu, basically, which hit in 1918. It traveled around the world. It infected, I don't know, a third or a half of the people in the world at the time, and that killed anywhere from 50 to 100 million people. And I think it was responsible for ending World War I, because it was raging in the trenches, raging on troop ships, and as the Allies and Axis were fighting in World War I, and things had ground to a halt, the flu was wiping out more people than the enemy on both sides. So, people lost the will to fight. And I think that, is why the war ended. So there are global repercussions of this. So this is a good article. Like I say, you can look at the progression and the history of this from this article. You can just Google this, characteristics of and important lessons from the coronavirus disease 2019 outbreak in China. Okay. And then if on my own Twitter feed, I've been sending out quite a few different, quite a bit of information on this disease. And this is a very good plot here. This is an excellent plot comparing the coronavirus to SARS, Ebola, swine flu, and MERS. So let me just expand this and play it. Sorry, let me start at day 0. Okay, so day 4. Okay, so this is the start of the outbreak, and you can see the curves. This is SARS going up here. Coronavirus hasn't appeared yet. It's very, very low. And then you can see it starting to work its way up. Okay, you can see it going up exponentially and skyrocketing up and dwarfing all of these other diseases. Okay, it didn't work. I wanted to stop it near the end. Let me just cycle back here. Okay, so what you can see is, it's about 2.3% is the death rate. With SARS, it was much, much higher. Swine flu, 1.3%. Ebola, 67.5%. So when you have a disease as deadly as Ebola, the people that get it, they get very sick immediately. They die within a week or two. They're not able to transmit it to other people, so the number of deaths was actually quite small. And this was in Western Africa, 2014. MERS, also pretty high. I can't read that number; it's hidden, but also very high. Few cases. So when you get to the common flu, this number is about 0.1%, and there's about 3,000 deaths each season in Canada, about 30,000 deaths. So since October of 2019 to now in the US, about 30,000 people have died from the common flu, just to keep those numbers in perspective. Okay, so the coronavirus is it's about 20 times higher fatality rate than the common flu, from what we can see. Okay, so I've shared that. One of the things that is interesting is, a dog in Hong Kong is tested positive for the coronavirus. Now, its owner has the coronavirus, so it could be that the dog is just, that the dog is not really infected in the same way that a person is. Maybe it's just carrying the virus, in parts, but it's not, the virus hasn't affected the DNA of the animal, for example. So, this is just a new hot off the press release. But, if the dog is a carrier, can it spread the disease, infect people? Does this mean that the coronavirus is crossing the species barrier? It went from the wild animals or bat to perhaps a mammal to perhaps to humans, and if it can go back to dogs and then go back to humans. I mean, there's lots of questions. This is very important to figure out what's going on with that dog. So I've been sharing lots of different articles and so on about it. And what did I want to find? This is a very good article about the 25% decrease in China's carbon dioxide, for example. Okay, so this is on my Twitter feed. So this is just a map of China. Here's Wuhan right here. There's the Hubei province. So it's sort of, central, more or less to the, it's east, just east of central China, about, halfway up, just to give you an idea of where it is. Okay. So this is the World Economic Forum. They're talking about the economic toll of the coronavirus, from iPhones to solar panels to tourism. Obviously, huge impacts on China, but huge impacts on the globe. And you can just look at what the stock markets have done around the world this week, and there's been tremendous drops. Finally, they're starting to wake up to the reality of the economic disruptions from China and spreading out to other parts of the world. So this talks about some of the effects and so on. This is manufacturing value added. So this is China here, and this is in the blue is the world. So 14.2 trillion in the world, of which 4 trillion. So 4 trillion is about a third to a quarter. More, it's 4 over 14, 2/7, right? It's about, right? It's a huge chunk of world production, between a third and a quarter, between a quarter and a third. Okay, and GDP per capita per person, how China has gone way up. Look how it was relative to the globe in 2009, and now it's it's almost coming up par with the rest of the world. And it talks about the tourism, it talks about the production, it talks about dealing with SARS and so on. It talks about global trade and so on, global health, global trade. So that's another good article. Now, this is a key article to look at the climate connection of coronavirus. It's temporarily reduced China's CO2 emissions by a quarter. I recommend that you Google this and have a look at this article in Carbon Brief. Okay, so let's have a look at what's happening. So you can look at the electricity demand, industrial output. They're far below their usual levels. Coal use at power stations is on 4-year lows. Oil refineries way down. Output of key steel way down. Levels of NO2, nitrous oxide, air pollution over China is down 36% over the same period last year. Domestic flights are down up to 70%. Okay, so basically the coronavirus has resulted in reductions of 15 to 40% in output across key industrial sectors. Overall, it's about a 25% hit. It's likely wiped out a quarter or more of the country's CO2 emissions while industry has been shuttered. And so basically, in 2019, China released about 400 megatons of CO2 over this time frame, over these few weeks. So the virus has cut about a quarter of that, or 100 megatons. And it's shaved off demand for oil. So, of course, oil prices have plummeted. And so basically, it's important to know every winter during Chinese New Year, and it was January 25th, 2020, this year, the country closes down for a week. So shops, construction sites, everything closes. Industries wind down operations. So there's a short-term impact on energy demand, industrial output, and emissions. The thing is things stayed shuttered this year. So this is daily coal consumption at 6 major power firms. Okay, so this is days before and after Chinese New Year here. Okay, so again, daily coal consumption at 6 major power companies. This is 2020 here. Okay, if you look at 2019, there was a drop and then recovery. This is a drop for the Chinese New Year. This is days before and after Chinese New Year, which is here. So Chinese New Year is at 0 here, and days after. So normally, you shutter things down before and it recovers, but the shuttering down occurred and they kept things closed. So it's flat-lined along the bottom here in 2020. You can look at 2018, 2017, 16, right? All the different years, the envelopes, they're all coming back up here, but not this year because of the effects of the virus. Okay, this is coal. This is basically one of the ports where coal comes in, the throughput of coal. And this is the 14-day average utilization as a percent. So the capacity of the port throughput, and you can see, here we are here dipping significantly here. Okay. This is the deformed steel bar production plant. You can see the dip each year due to the Chinese New Year, and the dip's here, but the dip has stayed lower. National rate for blast furnaces, okay, also dipping down. So if you look at all these indicators together, we're talking about a reduction of about 100 megatons of CO2, or 6% of global emissions over the same period. Okay, and that's so if it's 6% reduction of global emissions, then it's about 6% reduction of aerosols to first order, if you like. And if the global dimming number is 1 degree Celsius, then that would be about 6% of that, or 0.06 degrees Celsius. A little spike in warming globally from the coronavirus. And if you look at it over China, it would be 25% over China specifically. Okay, these are NO2 levels before, during, and after the Chinese New Year holiday in 2019. So we got quite a bit of NO2. There's the Chinese New Year. And after Chinese New Year is over, you start getting a recovery here as things shutter up. So here we have it, what's happening in 2020 this year. So there's the production before the Chinese New Year. There's the slowdown, the shuttering, and here's what it is, on a continuing basis while industry is still down in China.